Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Module 3 of the CSB Annual Report. For those who may not know me, I am Katie Kajowski, NASCASP Research Director. We're excited that you are able to join us on the call today. We understand that you are all very busy, and we appreciate you making the time for this webinar. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. Attendees are on mute. If you'd like to ask questions during the webinar, we welcome those questions, but please use the chat option on the webinar toolbar. The toolbar is located on the right-hand side of your screen. Use the text box where you can type a question. Please select all panelists in the drop-down menu to ensure that all of our presenters can see your questions. Questions will be allowed at the end of the webinar and answered during the Q&A portions. In order to keep to our schedule, we may not have time for all of your questions, and in that case, we will compile them into an FAQ and put them to the NASCASP website. This webinar will be presented by Bill Bolduc, Community Services Block Program Operations, OCS, Isaac Davis, Program Specialist for the Office of Community Services, Crocker, Director of Training and Technical Assistance for Community Action Partnership, Barbara Mooney, Director of the Association of Nationally Certified Roma Trainers and a consultant with NASCASP, and myself, Katie Kajowski. Agenda for today's webinar to discuss Module 3 of the new CSBG Annual Report. This is the community level module. We consider the elements of Module 3, Section A, the Community Initiative Status Form, Section B, the Community National Performance Indicators, Section C, Community Strategies, and we'll discuss available tools and resources and those that are coming to you in the near future. So before we begin, I'd like to ask Jarl to put us with a brief welcome from the partnership. Jarl?
Hello, everyone, and thanks again for joining us this afternoon or late morning, depending on where you are. And thanks again both to OCS, NASCASP, and ANSERT for helping on these webinars to make sure that our network is ready for the full implementation of the annual report and Roma Next Generation. I just wanted to thank you again on behalf of the partnership and our CEO, Denise Harlow. And of course, if folks have any follow-up questions or if any of our national partners can be of further assistance to you, don't hesitate to reach out to anyone on this webinar or staff of our organizations. We're always more than happy to provide you with any additional follow-up support. So thank you all again, and look forward to hearing your questions and hopefully see you at the partnership's annual convention at the end of next month in Philadelphia.
Great. Thank you so much, Jarl. Now I'm going to be turning it over to Bill Bolduc from the Office of Community Services. Bill?
Yeah, good morning, and thanks, Katie. Thank you, Jarl. Happy Friday to everybody. I'm very happy to be here today to talk about Module 3 on the community level, which is a critical piece in the new annual report. Before that, I'd like to introduce Isaac Davis, one of our program analysts. Isaac is responsible for Regions 3, 6, and 9. Isaac, please go ahead. Are you on mute?
Okay. Hear me now.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your participation. This is Isaac Davis from Office of Community Services, and as the program analyst responsible for Regions 3, 6, and 9, my role is to review the state CSBG plans, the annual reports, and to work closely with the state CSBG managers to address questions and arrange technical assistance. I'm seeing the state eligible entity technical assistance services grant and PIC grants for Region 3, 6, and 9. So we're looking forward to ways to helping grants that support and useful technical assistance related to our performance management framework. I look forward to checking in with state CSBG managers about progress and for the new annual report, and encourage those of you who are local agencies to share your questions with your state CSBG staff. This is a process for all of us within OCS, and we are working to share information and to be responsive to your questions as they come in. So thank you all for joining us.
Just want a couple more remarks, and I'll turn it back over to briefly to Katie. But in regards to Module 3, although some of the content is new with the new annual report, what's really critical to know is this is all based on the community's work and local impact. And so it's all, everything about the community strategies is locally determined. And we're happy to discuss any content or questions that you have toward the end of the presentation. Now I'll hand it back over to Katie.
Thank you, Bill. We will get started with the webinar today with the content that you all have been waiting for. So let's go to the next slide, and I will turn it back over to OCS to discuss the performance management framework.
Next slide, please. Okay. Just a review of the performance management framework. As you know, there are several components to that. They all work together. The local organizational standards, and federal accountability measures, results-oriented management and accountability system, otherwise known as ROMA. Along with ROMA, the next generation. The CSBG annual report, which includes an updated and a refined set of CSBG outcome measures and performance indicators. ROMA Next Generation is intended to demonstrate a commitment to outcomes, strengthen local solutions for families and communities, to improve CSBG performance management and performance measurement, to demonstrate continuous quality improvement across a complex system, finally, to build agency capacity for the long term. The reporting timelines, as you can see on the graph chart above in the webinar, the state reporting period A, July 1 to June 1, is 2016 to 2017. You'll see also that the state reporting period October 1st to September 30th, which is for 29 states, that progress, as well as state reporting period C. So the submission for the states will be due March 31st, 2018. And Module 1 would be completed based on the 2017 federal fiscal year submitted through OLDC. Right. And then for federal fiscal 2018, you can see the timelines there as well. And that also is due March 31st, the CSBG annual report. And that will be submitted through OLDC. Module 1 is based on the federal fiscal year, and 2 to 4 are based on the state reporting period. The annual report replaces the CSBG IS survey. Next slide. So how does this all fit together? Okay, so the community it starts with that local community with a community needs assessment, which is a critical piece determining what the priorities are for the community. And then from the needs assessment, a strategic plan is developed, and the strategic plan becomes the Community Action Agency Community Action Plan. And then is submitted to the CSBG state plan. And an annual report is developed, and finally, the annual report is, it goes to the congressional offices, and a congressional report is generated according to the statute. As you can see, here is the new National Community Action Network Theory of Change. Now, a lot of you have seen different iterations of the theory of change, and I want to just say that NASCAP has been an enormous amount of effort, and we work closely with them as well as Roma and NASCAP. And I think the final outcome is a really strong product and really highlights what the theory of change is and how it all fits together. As you can see, the goals are clearly outlined at the top, and then the principles and performance management are highlighted as a building block. Okay, and I know it says close to final, but it probably will be the final. I don't believe we're going to be making any further changes to it. Yeah. Okay. All right. I think that's four. Oh, one more slide. I'm sorry. So CSBG annual report. Again, going over the 4 different modules. The first one, which you've already submitted for the first time, was the state administration. And module 2 is the eligible entity expenditures, capacity resources. We won't be going over that today. So today's presentation is focused on module 3. And we had a separate webinar recently on module 4. Hope you were able to join that. And that is focused on the individual and family level. I think that's all for ODS. I'll turn it back over to Katie.
Bill, we'll take a deeper look at Module 3, and I would like to introduce Jarl to start us off.
Thanks, Katie. And so, as part of our introduction to Module 3, working with your community level strategies and initiatives, we know that across the network there has been some anxiety about reporting on community level efforts. So we just want to make sure that we clarify that you don't do community level work as part of your overall set of programs, services, and strategies, then you don't need to report on this particular module. Of course, that said, the new annual report does allow those agencies that do community level work to more accurately report on their efforts, capture the type of services and strategies that they're providing, and capture the outcomes that they're able to achieve through their efforts. We would also like to encourage agencies to take a look at options for doing community level work. We hope that along with the improved reporting on community level initiatives across the network, we'll get some great models that our agencies might consider replicating or at least adopting components of. That said, let's talk a little bit more about some of the big picture issues around community level work. Slide. So, that slide just simply underscores is the fact that community level efforts and work have always been part of there's, in terms of the purpose and goals, that it's to provide assistance to states and local communities working through a network of community action agencies and other neighborhood-based organizations for the reduction of poverty, the revitalization of low-income communities, and the empowerment of low-income families and individuals, including the greater use of innovative and effective community-based approaches to attacking the causes and effects of poverty and of community breakdown. So doing community level work has always been part of the DNA of community action, and I think what that passage underscores is that I think anti-poverty efforts are most effective when they're able to target multiple levels, working with individuals, working with families, working at neighborhood level, and ultimately working at the community level, in the way that things like a bundled service approach that provides more comprehensive services achieves better outcomes. We think that agencies that are able to work on multiple levels are often able to see, to leverage the ultimate impact of their work and achieve ultimately better outcomes for the individuals, families, and communities that they serve. Next slide. So community level work, again, Module 3 is a renewal of our network's understanding of the necessity of working towards community change as well as individual and family outcomes. So again, professional partners are developing a variety of resources to support agencies that are engaged in community level work and are also considering becoming parts of community collaboratives, coalitions, or doing community level work as part of their overall anti-poverty efforts. We're working on manuals, guides. We have a number of learning communities that are looking at community level efforts. So we do have a number of resources out there to support agencies that are taking on this work. And again, Module 3 creates the reporting space for our agencies who are tackling these complex community level issues. So if you're already doing community level work, we really think the annual report provides you with a accurate, comprehensive tool to really capture what you're doing and the outcomes that you're achieving. And again, hopefully that will also provide us with models for replication and ideas that other agencies might consider incorporating into their efforts. Next, and so what we are walking through today are the 3 sections in the annual report. Section A is the Community Initiative Status Form, and Section B is the Community National Performance Indicator, so tracking those outcomes, and Section C are the community strategies, or what you're doing as part of your community level work. This slide shows you is the crosswalk between the new annual report and what you could report on in the old IS survey. And I think one of the most valuable things in these slides is that crosswalk. You'll see as we go through those sections A, B, and C, you'll see what's the same as the old IS and also what's changed with the new annual report. So this is a great tool to let you go back to your agencies, look at what you're currently reporting on, and then making sure that you're collecting the data you need to be able to report on those additional services, those new NPIs, again, as long as you're doing community level work, and that's something that you're reporting on. And with that, I think I'm turning it back over to Barbara Mooney.
Yes, Charles. I'm going to talk a little bit about the needs that are identified in the community needs assessment. We often hear community level needs being identified. There are a couple on the screen. Our community lacks living wage jobs. There is need for affordable housing, more affordable housing. We have a high unemployment rate, or we have a low high school graduation rate in a specific school district that serves our customers with low incomes. And we wonder, well, those things are really big picture problems. How are they going to be addressed? So we are at the way we're looking at things currently and the way that we've looked at things for a long time. So it's not just about the way we think about Roma Next Generation, but working the CSBG network really to look at this community problem that's been identified and think about how the conditions in the community might change. Will there be an increase in living wage jobs? Will an addition of affordable housing rates? Will the units, will the high school graduation rates for low-income students improve? Those would be the big picture community outcomes that would be responding to those community level needs. So, time when we look at the needs assessment and then we look at the plan, we see that the plan includes direct services to individuals, and thinking that if we get people jobs, or if we get people moved into affordable housing, or if we help people graduate from high school, that will impact on the overall at some point. But the next generation really says, look at the strategies. It's the direct services to individuals, but what are the strategies that will change those conditions? Because even if you get people jobs, that doesn't increase the ability of jobs in the community, so it doesn't impact the community level conditions. So what will agencies actually be able to do that can make these kinds of changes? And who will agencies partner with? As these are difficult problems, you've heard us talk about them as wicked problems, involve multiple organizations. So we will see some strategies being identified in the annual report in Module 3, because Module 3 allows us to collect this information about the community level initiatives of the agencies. One of the interesting things about this module is that it allows us to make actual connections between initiatives that are being developed and the outcomes. And I would say when we talk about initiative might have multiple strategies. So the difference between an initiative and a strategy is that the initiative is the big project that you're doing, and the strategies are ways that you might be addressing that initiative. This module allows us to demonstrate how the initiatives are poured on over time, because we know that this work is very difficult. And if the initiative is carried over from year to year, the second year will show the auto-population of information from the prior year. In the areas in this module, you'll see the auto-calculation of results. We believe that there will be more than a handful of initiatives from most community action agencies. Some community action agencies may have one or two community initiatives. Or, as I said, things that include community strategies and are really about achieving a community level change. What type of community level work are we expecting to be reported on? The first thing is we're going to be reporting on initiatives that have these community level outcomes that we've been talking about, that are planned or achieved within the report year. Or achieved. So you may not achieve the outcome in the report year, but you have planned it within the report year. You'll see that they were started, continued, or completed in the report year. We know that community action has some initiatives that it does independently, and some that they do in partnership, and some they do in a collective impact way, and those are things that should be included here in Module 3. Some things that you would not be including are community meetings or other kinds of activities that really do not have a specific community level outcome identified with it. They have a regular meeting of service providers where you share information. That's very valuable for communication and for ongoing relationships. But there's not a specific outcome that's being pursued, and so those would not be reported. So then there's the Community Initiative Status Form. This is a new document that's in the annual report. And we hear that it looks complicated and time-consuming. And the question is, wow, is this going to take me a lot of time? We said that the agency is only going to include initiatives that have community outcomes, and there will probably be one or two, or it's just a handful of initiatives. And so the status form will only be completed for initiative. There are drop-down menus, auto-population included in the online system, the place for the online system that will make it quicker to complete. And we believe that the agencies will have all of the information readily available for this status form, and will only need to complete the form once a year, and that they would have the information that they would have for their initiative to describe their initiative at any rate. So it wouldn't be information that they have to dig for, so it would be readily available. What is this? Will local agencies be required to report on Module 3? A very important question. And with all of the information in the annual report, the agencies are only required to produce reports on the items in their plan that respond to their unique local causes and conditions of poverty. So the Community Action Agency does the community needs assessment. They've conducted this needs assessment. They have a clear understanding of the profile of the causes and conditions of poverty in their community, and have identified outcomes both at the family level and at the community level, if appropriate, and have a rationale for how they selected the strategies that they're implementing. So it's really up to the local agencies, based on their needs assessment, to identify if they are going to be doing community level work. And if they are doing community level work, they will report on it in Module 3. Talk about the community initiative status form. So walk through this a bit to get a sense of it. This is the first page of the status form. And so many things that are gained by this form. We have a better understanding of what the network is going to do to make the community change. It explains what the agency is doing at the community level. Things might be done over time, because we know community change doesn't happen within a particular year. A part of a planning process that the agency uses to get answers to these questions. It might cause the agency to pause and really consider its planning in a way that might make it improved. There will not be a reporting burden throughout the year. Probably going to be completed perhaps when the initiative is planned or has begun, and then reported at the end of the year. So we're looking at how this could be useful. Of course, there's the name of the initiative and then what year of the initiative. So in the first year of reporting, you might be in the third year of your initiative. And so, that won't happen going forward probably, but for this first reporting period, we might see that you're in a certain part of the initiative year. There'll be a drop down. You'll have to provide a narrative about the problem, what's the need, and these some tools from both NetCASP and the partner think about how to identify community level need statements. And there will be a narrative about what the goal is, what the ideas are to change, what's going to be changed, and a selection in the drop down of one of the domains, a reference to the community NPIs listed in Section B of this module. Here you're going to identify the community itself. Is it a neighborhood? Is it a school district? Is the particular community that will be the focus of this initiative? And then how long do you expect that this initiative is going to take? So see how this could be part of your planning process, really to set down these pieces, which could be part of a mutually agreed upon agenda with your partners. And last piece on this part of the page is that identification of partnerships. The initiative form continues with a narrative about the key partners and the selection of strategies, again, a drop down of the strategies that will be identified in Section C, and the sense of reading then on progress. So were there outcomes to report? Were there interim outcomes that happened but not the final, or you achieved the final outcome? So that's a place where that the idea of what happened in the fiscal year, in the project year, and the impact of the outcomes. So if the outcome is that we have established a community center, what was the impact of that community center? Did it help us increase the number of children that came to an after-school program at the center who are all on grade level? So we're asking people to look at what's the change that happened as a result of the outcome. And the indicator is another drop-down menu. And then if you're at the final status place, this is where you enter it. And finally, a lessons learned. And lessons learned really can happen at any place along the continuum, at any year. What lessons were learned about how the startup went, what went well, what could be done differently, what were the challenges that had to be overcome. And then middle stages, were any unintended consequences of their actions? Were there outcomes that you didn't expect to have that came forward? So there are all pieces of lessons learned that would be included in this status form. And the domains in this area are the same domains as throughout the annual report and in the theory of change, with a little bit of a twist on income, infrastructure, and asset building being at the community level, but still the same basic domains. And then the indicators being identifying them as a menu of options. Of course, no one is going to do all of these indicators, but someone is going to do each of them. So it's a menu, you would pick those things that were appropriate to your work. And includes an other because it is important to us as we roll this out, as we look at new community level work, that we understand the scope of the work, and so this other is being included as a way to get more feedback from the field. We'll talk some about community level NPIs and how they're different from, please, you need to go back, sorry. We'll talk a little bit more about the community level NPIs as they relate to the individual and family NPIs. But know that there's a clear distinction that it isn't just about counting up a number of people. And there are two distinct kinds of indicators. There are counts of change and rates of change, and we'll talk about each of those here in just a minute. But just so that you know, we know that community level change happens in different ways. Some of the rates of change are related to outcomes that are going to take multiple years, and we know that that's the case and expected to be true. A little more about the difference between community and family level NPIs. We do not want to see is that you're counting up the number of people, say, who have gotten a high school diploma, and you say, this is the number of individuals, therefore there's been a change in the rate of high school graduation. No, you have to look at that. You have to understand it. You have to be able to see what impact the individual and family level impacts are having at the community level. That might be a part, that service that's part of all of the strategies that are identified by your initiative, but is not the sum total of it. It's you have this planned initiative with strategies. Here's an example. It's developing a new initiative that you're going to count the new asset that would be developed in the community, like the community center I mentioned earlier. So, the number of customers who attend the services and achieve outcomes are reported in Module 4 at the family level. So, the example I gave earlier, where there's an after-school program now at this community center that you've created, the number of children that come to that program and the number of children who improve their grades are reported. They are customers. They're reported on an individual level at Module 4. But if you have this as part of a community strategy, and if your community is the school district, you must see the rate of change of improved grades in that school district. That would be the community level change, and it would have to do with people that were not your own customers at your own agency. So how do these indicators actually work? I'm going to turn it back to Katie to talk about the Community Action National Performance Indicators at the community level.
Thank you, Barbara. I really appreciate your comments on the differences between community and family level work. And that echoes what there's somebody placed in the chat that, not everything that we do in community action agencies is at the community level. Therefore, you have, let's say, 30 community initiative status forms to fill out. You have 3 community initiative status forms. And in some cases, your organization might not be working at the community level, and that's okay. But this is about being intentional if you are, and really following the work that meets the needs of your community. Take a deeper look at what is in the Community National Performance Indicators. Thank you. These are the employment indicators. This is under domain 1, the first domain. As Barbara mentioned, these are the domains that are throughout 2 through 4 and that connect directly back to the theory of change. These are the core domains that community action work is done under. So before we get deeper into the indicators, let's take a look at within the columns. So we have counts of change and rates of change, as you can see on your slide. In the counts of change, there are 4 columns for reporting. The first column says identified community. It will auto-populate from your community initiative status form. That is, if you're working at a neighborhood level, a service area level, perhaps a county, a city, regional, that will be pulled into the report into that column. The second column is the target. So for counts of change, you'll enter how many counts of change you expect to increase. So in the example of the number of jobs created in target, if you anticipate creating 25 jobs in your community, you would insert 25 there. Column 3 are the actual results. This is where you'll report at the end of each program year the actual results. For counts of change and the rates of change, both the target and the actual will be based on that program period, not the life of the initiative, but the program period. And this is so that You can change targets from year to year, and you can report what actually happened during that year. Fourth column is the performance target accuracy. This is a percentage that will auto-calculate. Change, we have 7 columns. The first column is the identified community. The second column is the baseline rate. So the example of employment, that's where you would insert percent decrease in the unemployment rate. That's where you would insert the unemployment rate in your community at the beginning of the year. Target is what you estimate the rate to change to. Where is the expected percent change from baseline? That is a percentage that will auto-calculate for you. Column 5 are the actual results. At the end of that program period, you will enter the actual percentage of the employment rate into that column. And then columns 6 and 7 will auto-populate. Column 6 is the actual percent change from the baseline, and column 7 is the performance target accuracy. These slides that we will be reviewing come from the annotated version of the CSBG annual report. We'll talk later in the webinar about where you can locate this document. The great useful tool as you're becoming more familiar with what's in the annual report, because it outlines what is similar to the indicators from the CSBGS and what are new indicators. That is something that you can see on your screen in red. Employment, we have similar indicators to what was in NPI's 1.1 A through D, and we also have some new indicators as you see in these rates of change. Next. These are the education and cognitive development indicators. This is the second domain. There are similarities to NPI's 6.3 and 2.1 and some new indicators. This is where we would report counts of change for adding early childhood or preschool education assets to your community, or early childhood screenings, or perhaps accessible and affordable post-secondary education assets added to the community. Next slide. Also, the education and cognitive development indicators. This is in domain 2. You can see that these are all new indicators. These are all rates of change. So in these indicators, we're looking at perhaps the percent increase of children in the community who are identified as kindergarten ready. Or perhaps we're looking at the increase of adults in the community who attend post-secondary education, or maybe the increase of the literacy rate in your community. So options within the rates of change. Next slide. Structure and asset building indicators. This is the third domain. This domain, or these indicators, expand on what you may have reported in NPI 2.2. These are counts of new accessible assets or resources created in the community, or existing assets and resources that were made accessible. This is where you might report bring a new commercial building, or a community garden, or a park, or doing the work of the existing assets that keep them accessible in the community. Slide, please. For domain 3, infrastructure and asset building. These are all new indicators. These indicators report on the percent decrease of abandoned or neglected buildings, or the decrease in emergency response time, or maybe you're working on increasing the percent increase in transportation services in your community. That's all this intentional work that you would report in domain 3. These are the housing indicators. This is the fourth domain. On the slide, you can see both that we have the counts of change and the rates of change. Some of these indicators might be similar to what you have reported in 2.1, and some of these are new indicators. The indicators or where you can report on the number of housing units developed in the community, or perhaps you're reporting on weatherization at a community level initiative, and you would report that here under the housing units maintained or improved through weatherization or other rehabilitation. In the rates of change, you might be working on reducing the homelessness rate in your community, or the foreclosure rate, or increasing the rate of home ownership. Those indicators all live in this housing domain here. Next slide. And social behavioral indicators, domain 5. These indicators expand on what was currently being reported in NPI 2.2A through E, and of course the rates of change are new. This is where you might report the number of accessible and affordable physical health assets or mental health assets to the community. Or maybe you're working on decreasing the infant mortality rate or childhood obesity rate, where you might report some type of that health and social community level work that you're doing. Additional health and social behavioral indicators in the community level module. These on this screen are all rates of change. You as well. This is where you might report work that you're doing to reduce the teen pregnancy rate, or maybe reducing child neglect rate, or recidivism rate. Doing that type of work, this is where you might report it in the 5th domain under health and social behavioral indicators. Next. Civic engagement and community involvement indicators. We have 2 different sets of these. One that aligns with Goal 2, which is what you're looking at right now. And Goal 2 of our new national goals is communities where people live with low incomes, are healthy, and offer economic opportunity. So if you're doing some civic engagement work under that goal, you would report it here. Some examples of things are the percent increase of people participating in public hearings or policy forums, or perhaps you're working on increasing the percent of donated resources to eligible entities deliver services. This is work that expands on what you may have been reporting in NPIs 2.1 and 3.1 and 3.2. Next slide. The civic engagement indicators that I was mentioning that fall under another goal. These fall under Goal 3 of the 3 national goals, which is people with low incomes are engaged and active in building opportunities in communities. This is where you may report the percent increase of people with low incomes who acquire and maintain leadership roles with the CSBG eligible entity or other organizations. This is work that you have been reporting in NPIs 3.1 and 3.2. And of course, in every indicator, we have the option for you to write in what you're doing. If you don't see the outcome indicator that you're actually working on, you can select to write it in. We have the other indicators located in each of the domains to know the work that you're doing, even if it doesn't fall within an already identified indicator. I have them for both counts of change and rates of change. Next slide. Take a look at some of the strategies that are connected with the indicators in Module 3, and I will turn it over to Jarl to talk with you all about that.
Thanks, Katie. So now we're turning to community level strategies. Next slide. And this slide is, I think, relatively straightforward. It is a list across the different domains of the different strategies that you can indicate that you use in your community level initiative. So it's relatively straightforward. You would just simply indicate which strategies you are employing. And again, the slides provide you with a helpful tool because you can see that in red there's a crosswalk with what has changed what's been expanded, and what's been added with the old IS compared to the new annual report. So this is the list of employment strategies that you can indicate, and as you can see, those red arrows show you where the strategies expand on the old MPIs and what's been added in terms of additional strategies that you can report on. So this is probably one of the easiest sections of the annual report to fill out because you are simply indicating which strategies you are using. Next slide. Shows you the strategies across the education and cognitive development domain. So again, they are relatively straightforward. Also, if you follow those red lines, you can show that the Preschool for All campaign, for example, has been expanded from the old NPIs. And the education and cognitive development legislative changes strategies would be a new strategy that you could report on. So again, if you're doing community level work, this section expands your ability to report accurately on the strategies that you're employing. And also, if you're thinking about doing community level work, it gives you a good starting list of thinking about which strategies you might employ. Next. This is obviously a longer list in the infrastructure and asset building strategy, so again, a wide variety of potential strategies that hopefully can capture the work that you're doing at the community level. So again, you see that crosswalk with the old MPIs and some of those new strategies that you can now report on, such as at the bottom, that infrastructure and asset building legislative changes option. So again, a fairly broad list of options for you to report on for those of you that are doing infrastructure and asset building work at the community level. Next. Here you see the list of housing strategies, again with that crosswalk. Checking, going back, if you do community level work, checking to see if your strategies are reflected here, and then certainly you obviously see down there at the bottom, you have the option to put in additional strategies if the ones that are listed don't capture the work that you do. So this really provides you with a very flexible way to make sure you're representing the full range of strategies that you're employing. Slide. This is the list of health and social behavioral development strategies. Again, very comprehensive list, and of course all of them include that option at the bottom to add additional strategies, but hopefully they are relatively comprehensive enough to capture the work that you're doing. So again, just simply note the changes crosswalked with the old MPIs and some of the new options that are included. Next. Here's a list of community support strategies, and again, relatively straightforward. You've got those options to report on off-hour, non-traditional hour child care development, transportation system development, transportation services coordination and support, community support policy changes, community support legislative changes, and options. Slide. You see the list of emergency management strategies. So again, a relatively straightforward list of those strategies that you can report on. And again, this is a very easy section of the annual report to fill out. Next, we'll turn it back over to, I believe, Katie, Barbara, to talk about some of the examples.
Thanks, and I just wanted to remind folks that if you have questions, to please place them into the chat. Thank you. Barbara?
Sure. We're going to look at just a couple examples here just to try to make this real. So we've been talking a lot about the forms and the process, but what's some real life work? The agency identifies that housing stock in their community is not meeting energy efficiency standards. So they do that. Well, different communities have different ways of identifying problems with their housing stock. If the agency is working on housing issues and has a robust, whether it's a program, and has partners that might be part of a healthy initiative, they're looking at housing stock in many different ways. And one way might be the energy efficiency way. So we have an outcome that we would improve the housing stock, and then want to think of both a count of change and a rate of change to talk about this community effort. Where would we report it in Module 3? So the community initiative status form and talk about our partners, talk about our strategies. Our part might be the weatherization program, but what would other partners be doing in the community to help to create the outcomes that are identified by Community NPI 4B, which is the number of safe and affordable housing units that are maintained and or improved through weatherization or other rehabilitation efforts in the identified community. So that's one way of looking at our outcome. Or could we look at the percent increase of affordable housing in the identified community? And how would we define affordable? It might be that it would be a reduction in the energy burden for a family, or we may have other ways of identifying what affordable housing is about. We would pick a strategy, a write-in strategy actually, that we are creating a housing initiative to improve housing stock in the community. We looked at it, didn't appear to be a housing a strategy that met specifically what we were saying in the example. So we wanted to show that it's okay to write in our own strategy, making sure that it is a strategy language and it isn't an outcome, so that we're going to create a housing initiative to improve housing stock. Any questions about this example, put it in the chat and we'll talk about it. This example is about a early childhood example, where the agency identified that there was a community that had a lower than average percent of children from low-income families that were ready to enter kindergarten. And so they wanted to, their initiative was to work to implement a preschool for all campaign, because our outcome was both a count of change and a rate of change, and we'll see what that might look like. We'd create a status form. We'd identify the partners on the Preschool for All campaign. We would identify the specific services, strategies that were going to be done as a part of this initiative. We would be thinking about the mutually reinforcing activity, distribution of the partners, and would pick a community NPI 2A, the number of accessible and affordable early childhood or preschool education assets or resources added to the identified community, because it might be one of the particular outcomes that our coalition or our campaign has determined, that there are not sufficient resources that would help the children in that low-income community. And so one of the things we're going to do is this count of the number of resources that we've added. The thing that we might do is look at the percent of increase of those children, that same population that are identified who are kindergarten ready now. Was there a change? We identified a lower than average percent of success, and now we would like to see an increase in that percent, we'd like to see a change in the rate of kindergarten readiness. And the third example is one where it's very open-ended. It's an idea that the agency has an outcome that's not listed in Module 3. It's something that they're doing, some change that they've identified that's not listed. So what do they do? Do they not do a status form? Oh, no, they do a status form. They choose other in the NPI, and they can use a write-in, and they could pick a specific domain and the appropriate domain in the drop-down menu, and then use the other for what they're going to be in. And they're going to select a strategy, perhaps, or they might have to write a strategy under the appropriate domain. So it's wide open for write-in information, particularly in this first 3-year period. Okay, turn this back to talk about the formulas.
Great. Thank you so much, Barbara. Earlier I mentioned the columns in book 3 that will auto-populate with embedded formulas. So take a look at those formulas are. Next slide. So during this annual report, we had a lot of questions about what exactly are these formulas in these columns? What is the language around these calculations? What do they mean? And specifically, what is the actual formula that we need to insert and embed in the report? So we sought the guidance of a statistician to confirm these formulas and took his advice on fixing them. Next slide, please. So look at what's included in the counts of change. Counts of change, we'll look at an example for the number of jobs created to increase opportunities for people with low incomes in the identified community. We discussed earlier, the identified community will auto-populate. You will enter your target number and you will enter the actual results. In this case, we are targeting 25 jobs to be created in the community. At the end of the program period, the Community Action Agency was successful at creating 20 jobs in the community. The performed target accuracy rate, the percent of the target achieved, is in this case 80%. The formula you can see on your screen in red, that is actual results divided by the target. We look at an example of rates of change. The rates of change, in this example, we're going to look at the unemployment rate. So here, the baseline in column 2, which in this example is 5%. You'll enter the target in column 3, which is 3%. And then columns 4 will auto-populate, which is the expected percent change from baseline. Example, it's a decrease of 40% to baseline from 5 to targeting 3%. That's a 40% decrease that we're anticipating in the unemployment rate. You can see the formula up there in red. Column 5 are the actual results that you'll enter at the end of each program period. In this example, the Community Action Agency, along with other partners, was successful at reducing the unemployment rate to 4%. Columns 6 and 7 will auto-populate with the formulas above. So in this example, the actual change from baseline percent, the actual results compared to the baseline results is a reduction of 20% in the unemployment rate. And in this example, the performance target accuracy is 50%. Next. If you all notice in this screenshot that columns 2, 3, and 5, they have a number sign in them. And we're asking from the network is to enter percentages here. So we're comparing, when we're doing the rates of change, we're entering percentages. So we expect that we will change the sign from a number sign to a percent sign. So we're just giving you a heads up that may be coming. Next slide. Okay, this is in tools. Well, this is a big job that we all have ahead of us. So we will take a look at some of the resources and tools that we currently have available and discuss what will be available in the near future. Slide. CSBG annual report numbering. We have this posted to our website. What the numbering is identifying each indicator, giving each indicator its own unique identifier or its own number. So just as we have in the current IS report, we have NPI 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and then we have letters further identifying each indicator under those headers. So we've done the same thing with the annual report. We've labeled community performance indicators CNPIs. Module 4, we have SNPIs for family and individual level indicators. And we've also labeled services and strategies, SRV for services, and STR for strategies. So you get a deeper look at that in this Excel document that we have on our website, and we'll show you where that is in a minute. Next slide. The Untitled CSBG Annual Report. This is what we've been using in this webinar for Module 3 and in Module 4 to discuss the indicators. We have this located on our website. It's a great resource if you want to crosswalk what's between the CSBG-IS and looking at it already in the new annual report in that context. This doc can be very useful for you. Slide, please. Blocks, we have a few of them. As on this slide, we have a crosswalk between the CSBG-IS, takes you to the new annual report. We have one that starts with the annual report and compares it to the IS report, and also further compares it to the organizational standards. And we also have a high-level crosswalk, and you've seen some slides containing that information that at a high level takes you through each module of the new annual report and identifies where similar types of indicators would be located in the IS report. Slide. This is a screenshot of where all of these tools and resources are located on the NASCASP website. On the left-hand side of our homepage under CSBG, we have a CSBG annual report section. They're all located there. If you scroll down to the next slide page, if you scroll down, this is what you'll see. You'll see the tools listed. That's where we have the final CSBG annual report that received the OMB clearance. We have modules 2 through 4 in Excel forms. We have CSBG reporting timeline, the chart of the state reporting period. We have the presentations. This is where this particular presentation is also located, and have all of the crosswalks that we just took a quick look at. Thank you. We also have a Roma Next Generation portion of our website. This is where you might find things like the theory of change and resources directly related to Roma Next Generation. Right now, we are working on a CSBG annual report crosswalk that compares LIHEAP, Head Start, WIOA, and weatherization to indicators in the new annual report. We are working on a webinar series, which we're actually on right now. And we're also working on an instruction manual and lexicon. We'll release those as soon as they are complete and finalized. We also have the CSBG TNTA website. This is a joint project between NASCASP and the partnership, and many tools and resources can be found on this website. You can see it's the new annual report is there, along with webinars and many other resources related to the annual report and other CSBG resources as well. Next slide. Okay, we'll take some questions in just a moment, and these are NASCASP staff that you can contact, myself, Lauren Cook, Jackie Orr. Of course, you can always contact the partnership and Barbara Mooney and OCS with any questions that you might have as well. So I see that we've received some questions through the chat. Kyle, have the questions available?
First question is, when is the first report due for modules 2, 3, and 4? Do you think you could answer this question?
Can you all hear me? Okay, so the data collection for mods 2, 3, and 4 will begin in fiscal year 2018, and the first submission of the full CSBG annual report to OCS will due on March 31st, 2019.
Thank you. We have another question. When do I fill out the community initiative status form? Barbara, do you think you can take this one?
Sure. Anytime that you have community level work to report on, you would be completing a status form. You would do that for a new initiative or for an existing one.
Thank you. Also for Barbara, when filling out the community initiative status form, are we reporting on the initiatives funded by CSBG funding or other funding received by the agency?
Oh, good question. And the answer to this question is the answer to the question related to everything in the annual report. The agencies are to be reporting on the agency activity and not just those things that are funded by CSBG.
You also got questions about lessons learned. Is it expected to be answered regardless of the stage of the initiative? For example, just starting the initiative. Barbara, do you think you can take that one?
I think I talked a little bit about this in a presentation, that there are different lessons that you learn at different stages of the initiative. And it's important to know what those lessons are. So at any stage of the initiative, we expect there'll be some lessons learned. And we hope people will not skip this lessons learned section, because it's going to be important for us to help create training and technical assistance responses for the network.
I have another question here. Do I have to report on both counts and rates? Katie, you think you can this one?
Thank you, Kyle. You'll report on what makes sense. As we've been in the webinar, the indicators are just a menu of options. It's just what's available for your reporting purposes. It may make sense in some cases to report on counts and not report on rates of change. In other cases, it may make better sense to report rates of changes and not counts. Of course, there's cases where your initiative may select to report on both counts and rates of change. So it's really dependent upon your community needs assessment, the initiative that are engaged in, and the group that you're working with, and the type of data that you're collecting. So, yeah.
Okay, that's all good for questions. Let's throw back to you, Katie.
Great. Next slide then. Well, we just wrapped up the Module 3 webinar today on July 21st. Our final webinar regarding Module 3 will be held July 25th at 10 a.m. Central Time. It will be a repeat of what we have discussed on this webinar, but of course, all welcome to attend. We will post these webinars, all these webinars, and the PowerPoint slides on our website under the CSBG Annual Report tab. We appreciate you taking time out of your day. We know that you're all very busy. We appreciate the partnership of the partnership and of CS and ANSERT in assisting us with bringing this webinar to you all. And please reach out to any of us and all of us with any questions you may have. We look forward to working with you all more on implementing this annual report. So thank you all for joining us, and have a great day.